following is the recorded presentation and question and answer session from the February 5th, 2018 webinar hosted by the Office of Parent and Family Programs and featuring Associate Provost and Executive Director for Career Education, Christine Cruz Vergara.
So for this evening, our agenda will be as follows. First, I'd like to give you a brief overview of career education. Over the past couple of years, as Tara mentioned in the opening, we have re-envisioned and redesigned our career education model. Then we'll move into 4 of the major themes that are emerging for the future of work, followed by top 6 ways for your student to engage with us. And then I'll turn it back over to Tara and we'll open things up for a live Q&A. So looking forward to an engaging conversation with each of you. First of all, our vision is very straightforward and aligns with the mission and values of Wellesley College. Our vision is to be the leader in cultivating women leaders of the future. And we do that by preparing and inspiring every Wellesley woman to craft a lifetime of opportunity and realize her full potential. We were very intentional, in particular, with choosing the word craft, because the world of work is rapidly changing and evolving, which we'll talk about a little bit more in the future of work section. And it is incredibly important to us that we are equipping each of your daughters with the confidence and the skills to design her own life, not just fit into what may be prescribed for her. Before I move on, let me also be very clear that we expect and we look forward to working with your student to own this process and this journey. We will be there to meet her halfway. You will note as I go through our new career education model that we provide an extensive amount of support and guidance, but it is ultimately up to your student to take the initiative and to come meet us so that we can work together on this process. The following 4 pillars are really the structure and the backbone behind our strategic plan. We prepare Wellesley women for their career journey, to connect them to opportunities and communities. Through our career model, we influence Wellesley's reputation through our outcomes and outreach, and to advantage Wellesley through strategic partnerships with other institutions and organizations that further advance women's careers. So as we move into this, you can see a beautiful picture of my full team here. I'm going to walk you through our new staffing model that is unique to Wellesley. I had the privilege of joining the Wellesley community about 2 years ago, and in that time, we have completely redesigned our experiential learning and career education model for this institution. The changes grew out of an extensive listening tour where I had the opportunity to speak with more than 350 individuals that made up of students, alumni, faculty, campus partners, employers, and parents. I was able to take the common themes that emerged and combine them with my own research and work in the field around emerging trends in our industry. And at the very core and heart of our model, we are about connections and communities. So we have 4 core teams in front of you that you can see that allow us to execute this model of connections and communities. Our first team is our exploration and experiential learning model. Some of you asked questions in your registration form about whether or not your student is assigned to anyone in their process here at Wellesley. I'm happy to share with you that we have a very unique model that is actually not replicated at any other institution, where we have a college career mentor. Every single student at Wellesley is paired with a college career mentor for all 4 years of her time here. Our college career mentors are highly trained professional staff members that are dedicated full-time to working with your student on her journey. Our mentor helps your student to explore her strengths, her interests, her values, her passion, and what she might be good at and how she can contribute those strengths to the world of work. At the same time, we believe at Wellesley that we can make a difference in the world. And in order to do that, we must be humble enough to also ask the question, what does the world need of us? And so it is that intersection between self and society that our college career mentors will help your student to identify over and over and over again. And as your mentor works with the student, they have the opportunity to be guided towards funded internships, fellowships, and civic engagement opportunities. Our students are able to engage in these types of hands-on experiences that let them test out their curiosity, allow them to take risks, learn from what they like and what they don't like, and to be able to reflect on that and make further choices about their path. Again, many of you had questions about our internships. We do have a number of internships related to our formal internship program that is found through Handshake, which is our job and internship database. Students are able to apply directly for those, and they are also able to find internships on their own and can apply for funding if any of those internships are unpaid. Our second team is our Career Connections and Communities team. This team is really designed to support our students in helping them to craft very individualized and personalized strategies for breaking into their industry of interest or their field of interest. The advisors that we have here are specialized in the 6 different categories you see there on your screen in those different industry areas, and they work with the student to begin to craft a strategy that is specific to them. For those of you that obviously work in some of these industries, you know that the process, the recruiting timeline, the trends of getting into consulting, for example, looks absolutely nothing like getting into arts management. And those are really important facts and information that we need to be able to relay to your student. Again, looking through some of the questions that you all had asked during registration, some of you were wondering, why are some of my students' friends or peers already secure with an internship or with a job, but my student hasn't yet? And my first question back to you would be, what industry is your student looking to go into? Right? Different industries have different recruiting timelines, and it's really important that we're able to share that knowledge with your students so that they can craft a strategy that is right for them. Each of the career community advisors for us, they come from working in their respective industry, or they have worked extensively as HR or recruiters or in that space prior. So they really have specialization in those industries. And unlike other career centers, our advisors are also responsible for employer development in those areas. So they regularly collaborate and talk to employers, and they have the most up-to-date information about the recruiting practices and what those employers are looking for so that they can relay that in their advising appointments. Each community also hosts a number of employer events, panels, info sessions, and different types of recruiting opportunities such as panels and networking events so that students have ample opportunity to be able to connect with those employers and alumni. Over this past year, we hosted more than 250 events, for example. Our third team is our Alumni Career Advancement team. This is newer. We really have just implemented this for this past year, and this team really supports our alumni throughout the course of her lifetime, thinking about women's career advancement from now through retirement. So this would include topics such as career pivots or transitions, advancing within their current field or industry, thinking about re-entering the workforce if anyone has chosen to take time away, or finding an encore career. We're seeing many alums that are coming back for second, third, sometimes even fourth careers. This is a huge advantage here at Wellesley, that we offer lifetime services for alumni. This, again, isn't something that's offered at many other institutions, or if it is offered at a pretty hefty fee. And so we're really excited to be thinking about how we can continue to support our alums long after they have left Wellesley. And finally, our fourth team is our operations and analytics team. This is the team that truly provides the infrastructure and insight to support Wellesley through our outcomes and our outreach. In terms of infrastructure, this is the team that helps to power our technology. They power Handshake, which is the job and internship database that I mentioned to you before. That's also the same database that your student would use to access resources and access appointments with our staff. We also have the Hive, which I'll talk a little bit more about further into this presentation, but just to give you a snapshot, that is our networking and mentorship platform where students can actually activate the Wellesley Network that so many of you have heard about. And this is also the team that helps to think about our communications out to students, such as our biweekly emails from our career community advisors, our monthly mentor newsletters, and some of our other blasts about upcoming events or opportunities. This is also the team that collects information on our first destination outcomes. I'm sure many of you are curious, where do our graduates go after they graduate? This is the team that helps us to collect that information, measures the quality of our student engagement, both in person and digitally. We were thrilled that in unrolling and launching our new career education model last academic year that we engaged 75% of all of our student body in person, and we engaged 94% of our entire student body virtually. So we highly encourage you to make sure that your student is part of that group. And we use this data to inform not only our programming and services, but how we can continue to evolve our model as we move forward. So that gives you a bit of a snapshot about how we've changed our model and how we're continuing to think about the connections and the communities that, quite frankly, is an asset for Wellesley, and how that can be used to the advantage of each of your daughters, each of your students. This next section I want to talk to you about is the future of work. As many of you are probably reading about and are aware of, there are many things that are rapidly changing in our economy and in our marketplace, and with that requires a new way of thinking and a new type of skill set for our students to embrace so that they can be successful as they move forward. There are 4 major themes as we talk about the future of work. This past August, I had the pleasure of attending the Future of Work Symposium that was hosted by Stanford University, and there was quite a sense of agreement around these particular 4 themes as things that we need to pay attention to and think about as we work with our students and as we continue to evolve our model. The first is creativity and critical thinking. Given the level and speed of automation and the technological advances in all industries and all arenas, our students must learn how to adapt and pivot and synthesize their experiences, because they're going to be reinventing themselves over and over again on a regular basis. And the availability of careers and jobs are going to continue to change at a pace that, quite frankly, none of us have yet to experience. So the Senior Vice Provost for Education at Stanford was talking about the importance of creativity and critical thinking as skills for the next generation of workers. Many of you have probably heard this statistic before, but many of your students and the students coming after are going to have as many as 16 to 20 different jobs in up to 3 to 5 different industries over the course of their lifetime. That is untrue for many of us that are on this webinar, but that is going to become more and more the norm for our students. So as they think about this reinvention of themselves, their ability to ask thoughtful questions, their ability to frame and reframe problems, to be able to provide insight from various perspectives and make sense of data and information is going to be a very critical and needed component with the rise of automation. The second theme is lifelong learning. So we've heard this one before, and some of you are probably thinking this isn't any different, but I think what is different about this particular theme is how it will look and how this might in particular really change education, higher education in the traditional sense. So of course, with all these rapid changes, it's going to be really imperative for everybody to continuously acquire new skills throughout their career and lifetime. But how might that look in terms of new models of higher education? How can universities and colleges make it easier for students to come back, to take courses, to reskill in the areas that they might need to be able to advance, to be able to pivot or change industries? Those are some of the questions that I know many institutions are starting to ask themselves. How do we make that easier for students to do? There's a term called micromasters, right? So instead of taking a more traditional master's route and doing 2 solid years in a particular area, some institutions and some online platforms such as edX are really starting to explore this idea, this notion of micromasters and credentialing in that way. I would be honest in saying I don't see online education necessarily replacing the in-personal residential college experience. I think there's a great deal of value in that still. But I do think some of the online education or some of the other ways in which students can supplement their lifelong learning will complement the experience, the traditional experience that they are currently gaining at Wellesley and beyond. And so one of the speakers at this symposium mentioned that given the velocity of change in the internet, mobile, Internet of Things, AI, automation, et cetera, the only constants are going to be learning and adapting. And since change is the norm, we're going to need to have very agile mindsets, which I think, again, ties back into the first theme of creativity. The third theme around the future of work is the gig economy. This is a complicated topic for a number of reasons, because there are a lot of different statistics that are floating around that make up who sort of constitutes a gig worker. And what we're learning, though, here is that there are actually many people who are choosing to be in the gig economy, not because they have to be or they can't find a more traditional 9-to-5, 40-hour-a-week job, but because they want to be. And many who even have more traditional 40-hour-a-week jobs are choosing to be in the gig economy as sort of a side hustle because it gives them certain flexibility. And the main takeaways here is that people are choosing the gig economy for three main reasons. The first is control over who you work with. The second is control over what you work on. And the third is control over your schedule. And I think for many of you in the workforce, these are themes that you have already started to see in your own workplaces. Control over who you work with, what you work on, and your own schedule. So what's going to be fascinating to pay attention to with the gig economy is how this impacts policy. So right now, our society and our government has not yet caught up with the notion that the gig economy is continuing to change, adapt, rise, increase, if you will. So things like retirement, health insurance, and other benefits are still based on the more traditional 40-hour-a-week full-time job or the part-time gig in that way. And now with all these different configurations, there are different policymakers that are starting to really discuss what this could look like in a more flexible pattern. So that's something that we should all be paying attention to. And finally, the last theme is inclusiveness. Our workforce and our communities continue to grow more and more diverse, both from a racial and ethnic perspective, but also in terms of political difference, in religion, in socioeconomic status, in sexual orientation, in all sorts of different ways. And I think the Associate Dean and Director of Stanford's First Generation and Diversity Office, Derica Blackman, said it best, quote, "Diversity is a fact, inclusion is a practice, and equity is a goal." So across the board, whether we are in higher education or we are in industry, I think we can all agree that inclusiveness is imperative to our success. And that is something that we work very hard with our employers to think about as they recruit and retain our students. As we think about advancement, as we think about policy changes, these are obviously topics that are regularly discussed in the classroom here at Wellesley, and we encourage our students to continue thinking about how they can be leaders and to share their voice in some of these ways as they go out into the workplace and they think about what is to come. And I think it's probably very clear to all of you as well that we've seen the statistics of how a diverse workforce, whether that be gender, whether that be race or ethnicity, that really helps to increase often the bottom line of a business. And so companies at the symposium really reaffirmed that their belief that inclusion and equity is not only a business imperative, but a moral one. So with that, I think it is important to just note that we don't take those themes, the future of work, lightly. That is something that we regularly in our office think about, talk about, engage in. We're reading about it regularly, and we're always staying up to date on how we see shifts and changes happening within the marketplace, with our employers, with our alumni, and what that means for our students. How does that change our approach in our advising? How does that change our approach when we're mentoring our students? One of the things that is so impressive about the Wellesley community is the Wellesley Network that many of you heard about during admissions and have probably continued to hear about with every visit back to campus. And one of the things that we wanted to ensure your student was going to walk away with when she graduated was a personal advisory board. And so our college career mentors that are assigned to each of your students at the very beginning, they really serve as the first person on your student's personal advisory board, helping to provide some perspective and guidance and to challenge her. And as she begins to select an industry or a field of interest, that college career mentor doesn't go away. In fact, she connects them to that second team of the career community advisor. And that career community advisor serves as a second person on her personal advisory board. right? And as she works more closely with the career community advisor, that career community advisor is going to be able to help her identify alums that she can then also add to her personal advisory board, right? And so by the time she graduates, she will have been able to collect and to really build some deep relationships with individuals that can provide perspective, can provide insight, can challenge her and support her and guide her in some different ways around different topics as she continues to navigate this journey. So with all of that, I will turn it over to our next section, which is about the top 6 ways for your student to engage with us. I'll go into each of these in slightly more depth, but just to give you a snapshot, first and foremost, quite simple, meet with us. I promise you we're not scary, and we hope that your student will not be intimidated, but do encourage them to come meet with us if they haven't already. Clearly, you can see from the statistics that many have, and we would love for your student to be one of them. Second is to explore resources. We have many, and we actually have a new website that will be soon to be launched in just a couple of weeks. We'll be sure to send you an email and notify you once that has launched so that you and your student can be sure to check it out, but we have lots of resources for you. Third, we have so many events. We have hundreds, like I just said, each year, and we hope that your student is actually taking advantage of them. So please encourage them to do that. Our fourth is to apply for funded internships, which I know many of you took great interest in, so we'll talk more in depth about that in just a moment. The fifth is to find opportunities on Handshake. Handshake not only has internships across a variety of different industries and full-time opportunities across a variety of fields, but they are also across the entire country. So geographically, they are diverse as well. We also have research opportunities and fellowships that are also on there, and we are beginning to work with our student financial services to also post on-campus jobs in there as well. And then our sixth is to help your student find a mentor and to find individuals that they can talk with through the Hive, which again, we'll talk about in a little bit more depth. So first and foremost, come meet with us. This is very simple. There are a number of different ways that your student can come meet with us. The first, most straightforward one is to make an appointment. So if your student is unsure what she would like to do, or she's just beginning this journey, she's just beginning the conversation. I know that there are many of you that have first-year students on this webinar tonight. Please make sure to encourage them to make a career exploration appointment with their college career mentor. When they go into the system, into Handshake to make this appointment, they will only be able to see their college career mentor's appointment, so it'll make it very easy for them to see exactly who their college career mentor is. For those of you that might have students that are already ready to really explore an industry and get more industry-specific expertise, tell them to go on to Handshake and make an appointment with their career community advisor. And when they go on, they'll see a list of all the names and they'll see a list of which industries that advisor specializes in. So that's also very simple and straightforward. And then finally, for those that might be interested in exploring the opportunity of a fellowship, which is a funded opportunity after graduation to explore an area of interest or a study of interest, this is a great way to expand your horizons. So it never hurts to think about fellowships advising as well, and that's with Kate, our fabulous fellowships director. Second, which you've already heard me say multiple times, use Handshake to schedule the appointment. It's all right there. They can see all of the times. And for those of you, some of you mentioned again in your questions about the availability of our staff. There are some industries, especially during peak recruiting season, where their schedules do fill up rather rapidly and rather quickly. And if your student is finding that it is hard to find time for one of the scheduled 30-minute appointments, please encourage them to come to drop-ins and pop-ups, which don't require any advanced notification or appointment. This is great because we offer multiple drop-ins and pop-ups all week on a first-come, first-served basis. They're offered every day, and they're able to come in and actually engage. For some of the career communities in particular, they do group pop-ups. So this is also a really fabulous way for your student to be able to build community with other students that are interested in her area and for them to be able to learn from each other. Our upperclassmen and our peer-to-peer learning has really increased significantly this past year, so we also encourage your student to take advantage of that as well. Just to give you a sense of how our appointments have grown since we launched our new model, you can see that we had a 202% growth, and we were able to meet with quite a few students over the 2016-2017 academic year. We have a 98% satisfaction rate after our in-person appointment, so we're very pleased that our students have been able to get what they need out of the appointments as well. I won't read you the entire quote, but I will stop on this slide for just a moment so that you can read this excellent testimonial and quote from one of our students who really had a wonderful experience with some of my amazing team members. And as I mentioned earlier, we were really proud to say that we engage 75% of our student body in person through our appointments, through our events, and through our drop-ins and pop-ups. In case you are wondering for context, most other colleges and universities engage approximately a third of their student body. And of course, even more digitally. Our goal, of course, is 100%, and that's what we strive for every year. So with exploring resources, we have hundreds of online digital resources in Handshake that have all been custom created by each of our advisors. As I mentioned, we will be we are in the process of redesigning, and we will be launching our new website in just a couple of weeks. We are thrilled, and we can't wait to showcase it for you. But some of the topics in terms of resources that your student can find currently in Handshake are application and interviewing guidelines, resources for distinct populations, industry-specific guides to really help them think more specifically about the field that they're going into and what the resources are specific to that field, fellowships, and much more information. We also have Career Education's Suit program, which allows students to borrow suits for interviewing, conferences, or going to meetings where professional attire might be required. We do have a range of sizes and styles available, and so students are able to come, borrow, they can dry clean and return. Our third way for your student to engage with us is to attend our events. As I mentioned, we had over 250 events this past academic year, and the following chart gives you a bit of a breakdown of what that looked like. We really saw that our first-year students in particular really appreciated attending an event. It felt like a little bit less pressure for them to be amongst peers as they were doing so. And then we see a little bit of a dip with the sophomores and juniors because many of them are then starting to go abroad in those years. And so we don't see as many of them necessarily physically at the events. And then by senior year, we're finding that the seniors actually prefer more of the one-on-one individualized appointments or drop-ins. And so we're seeing them more for those versus the events. So that's kind of why you see some of those different percentages, but it's helpful for us in designing how we go about our programs. This slide gives you a sense of the different types of events that we have. We have lots of workshops on core career skills such as resume writing, cover letter writing, networking, your values, your interests, how you can apply those, so on and so forth. We also have lots of industry-specific events. We did away with the traditional sort of 2 annual or 1 annual career fair, and instead we do boutique career fairs within each of the career communities where we showcase approximately 15 to 20, sometimes 25 employers per industry. It allows our students greater access to employers that are actually relevant for what they are interested in. It also provides our employers with much more relevant access to the students that are really seeking their types of opportunities. We also are engaging with more employers and have really amped up our employer engagement strategy. So we're starting to bring more employers on campus. It is very important to note, though, that for certain career communities, for example, such as the arts, public relations, marketing, you might not see those employers recruiting in the traditional ways that, say, consulting, finance, or technology would. And so they might not participate in something like on-campus recruiting, or they might not attend on-campus events to the same degree. In those cases, the career community advisor would be working with students to make sure that there are events and opportunities off campus that they would be able to encourage the student to attend or get access to. We also have civic engagement opportunities for our students to be able to get into the community, start making a difference, and to use that, again, as a way of exploration. So we have alternative breaks. We have something called Day to Make a Difference. And these are just a snapshot of ways that your student can begin to get experience with us. All of our events, you can sign up through Handshake again. Our fourth area is apply for funded internships. These are open currently to sophomores and juniors. Some of you first-year parents are wondering why this isn't yet eligible for your first-year students. The reason being is that we have a limited number of funds, and we want to be able to spread our funding as evenly and as equitably as possible. And so many of the internships, as your students are probably starting to realize, for those of you that may have very ambitious students that are already taking initiative, it is typically more common for an employer to select a sophomore or junior for an internship. That's not to say that first years can't apply, but that's simply to say that the majority of folks that are going to be engaged in internships are typically sophomores and juniors. We encourage many first years to actually use that first summer to think about job shadowing and to actually test out multiple work environments in their areas of interest or in multiple areas of interest, which will help them make further decisions down the road about actual internships for sophomore or junior year. For our internship programs, the application deadline is in November. Not to fret, for those of you that have students that may not have applied for any within our formal internship program, we have over thousands of internships that are currently posted in Handshake and will continue to be posted throughout this spring semester. And so students are always welcome to find their own internships with our guidance and support, of course. And for those that encounter unpaid internships, because some industries it is common to have unpaid internships, those students are available to apply for grant funding. And those applications open now, and the deadline for those grants is in March. And just to give you a sense, we did award a little over $600,000 for internships. And this is a very generous number. Again, just to provide some context, we award the most, if not one of probably the top 5 in terms of internship awards for students compared to our peers at other colleges and universities. And on average, most of the awards hover around $4,000 per student. This gives you a sense of how many opportunities our students can find in Handshake. There are over 17,000 opportunities posted by over close to 5,000 unique employers just in 2016, 2017, and this network continues to grow. We use Handshake as our vendor, and one of the benefits of actually using Handshake is that we're part of their network. And so it allows us access, and it really allows us to amplify our brand to a number of employers that otherwise would not normally recruit at Wellesley or might not know about us. And then finally, the sixth way that we want your student to engage with us is to connect with us through the Wellesley Hive and to find a mentor on the Hive. This is a very exciting new initiative that was created in collaboration between Career Education and the Wellesley Alumni Association. We had a working group of alums that helped to create the Wellesley Hive. So it is really by alums, for alums, and students. In this system, students are able to search the Hive for alumni and for students, and they can search and filter by a number of different areas. So they could search and filter by geographic location, by industry, by their major. They could search by the student groups or alumni groups that they're a part of. They could search by their identity. There's so many different ways for them to find someone that they can speak with and to reach out. The system makes it very easy for them to connect with the person and to send an email looking for a time for them to either chat by phone, chat in person, or chat via video call. And the platform itself actually also has a video feature, so they can just do that directly through the platform. One of the things that we have learned through launching the Hive is that we have over 4,000 alumni, 4,000 alumni and students that are already in the system, ready to connect and talk with each other. We have over 300 messages that have been sent back and forth, and over 100 mentorship relationships, formal relationships that have been formed as well. So this is a great place for your student to engage in informational interviews to learn more about her field of interest. It's a great place for her to connect and begin to build a community. It's a great place for her to ask a question on the discussion board or to look for opportunities also in the Hive. This is essentially an exclusive and more intuitive version of LinkedIn, specifically for Wellesley. So with that, I will turn it over to Tara and we can open it up for live Q&A. Thank you very much.
Now, Wellesley College Director of Parent and Family Giving, Elizabeth Scholl, joins Christine to respond to parent questions. Our first question is about summer internships.
If you did receive a summer internship in Boston, is housing available on campus?
Good questions. So our summer grants do prioritize sophomores and juniors, meaning those that are between their sophomore and junior year and those between their junior and senior year. That being said, as a rising sophomore, you're certainly available and able to apply. You can certainly show interest. And depending on sort of the candidate pool, depending on the amount of money that we have that particular year, would determine whether or not you might get that funding. It's really important to us. It's a commitment of President Johnson's to think about access and equitability across the campus in terms of the different funding mechanisms. And certainly our office is not the only one that provides funding. And so we do, with limited funds, try and provide funding to our sophomores and our juniors, meaning our rising juniors and seniors first. But all that being said, if you have a very ambitious first-year student that is in between her first year and her sophomore year and is interested in applying, she is certainly more than welcome to do that. I would also encourage her to come to the info sessions about our internship program and to come and meet with some of our staff around that so that she can learn more about the criteria and what will continue to make her a strong candidate, because it is a competitive process. We do have a lot of students that do go out for funding.
That's great advice.
Yep.
So,
and I'm so sorry, I didn't answer the question about housing.
Yeah.
So if your student is here in Boston, there is some summer housing available. I am not Res Life, so I don't want to misspeak and share that we have full housing for every student that is here in Boston. We actually have a new director, Residence Life and Housing, that will be joining us on April 2nd. And she will be working very closely with our Dean of Students and our Vice President for Student Life to determine any changes that are made to both winter session housing as well as summer housing. So I would anticipate actually that the housing priority and the way that housing is done, particularly over breaks, will probably be changing over the next 6 months to 8 months or so. So do check back in with the Department of Res Life and Housing. Encourage your student to check in with the new director and her team around any changes that they'll be making there.
Great. Here's a good one.
Sure.
How could a student use the Alumni Network to maximize their internship opportunities in the United States and abroad?
Great, absolutely. We are so fortunate at Wellesley to have a really strong alumni base. Many of you probably heard while you were going through the admissions process and beyond that we have the strongest women's network, or the most powerful women's network in the world. It is very much true, and I can say, having worked at 4 different institutions, the alumni dedication and commitment is truly unmatched here at Wellesley. I hear time and time again that Wellesley alums often say, you know, I'm really busy, but when I see an email come through from a Wellesley student, I stop and answer. And I think that really means something. In particular, the ways in which your student can really engage with our alumni and take advantage of that network is to get connected to them through the Hive, which I talk about, I know, as one of the strategies for your student to engage with us. So encourage her to go onto the Hive, to connect with our alums there. The alums that are in the Hive have specifically volunteered to be mentors, to help with informational interviews, to provide insight and perspective. They are literally waiting for your daughter to reach out to them, and they are eager to help. So have her go on, have her do a search. If she's not going to be geographically in the Boston area, for example, and she's going to be going home, let's say my home is DC, so let's say she's going home to the DC, Northern Virginia area, she can do a geographic search for alums that might be in that area. She can also narrow that down by industry or by company even, or by maybe interest areas or activities or groups that that alum may have been in. And so she can do that, narrow down the list, reach out to some of those folks. I highly encourage her to do something called an informational interview. Many of you are probably familiar and do this yourself in your own careers. If you're not, an informational interview is exactly as it sounds. An opportunity for a student to learn and gain information from alums. And so what they would do is they would ask for 15 to 30 minutes of an alum's time to chat on the phone or perhaps take them to coffee or meet with them in their office. And the student, your student, would actually come prepared with some questions about the field, about how that alum got started, what advice the alum might have for her, what tips she might have around breaking into this industry, things like that. It's a really great way to gain more insight into the culture and the trends of the particular industry and company that she may be interested in working in. So I would highly encourage her to do that. And many of our alums are also active members of the geographic clubs in their regions. And so depending, again, on where your student might be interning or might be spending her summer or her time over break, she should also look at the alumni web pages to see if there might be any alumni events that are happening that she might be able to attend.
That's great advice. Okay, another one that's similar as a follow-up to that is someone writes, my daughter is a first year. Do you maintain a list of shadowing opportunities, for example, in the health sciences or?
That's a great question. So actually all of that is also housed in the Hive. So when you go onto the Hive, all of our mentors and all of our alums that have volunteered to be reached out to have indicated how and in which ways they would be open to being contacted. And so any alums that are open to job shadowing or to doing some of those things have actually indicated that as part of their profile. And so that is also a filter that your student can search for. If your student has any questions at all or is having any trouble navigating it, to be honest, so far students haven't. The site is extremely intuitive, very similar to all of their social media platforms. But if she has any questions, please send her our way. Our staff and our team is happy to meet with her and help direct her on where to go, how to search using the filters, how to find folks that are open for job shadowing. We also have some employers that are occasionally open to that. Theirs are typically a little bit more structured because, as you can imagine, they get outreach from hundreds of students from across many universities and colleges. And this is actually an area that we look forward to continuing to grow ourselves in terms of a repository over the course of the next, I would say, 3 to 5 years or so. But right now, we have a very strong base of alums, and that's a great place for your student to start.
That's great. Here's a question that's timely. How would you characterize the internships with March deadlines? Are they by industry, location? That was a question someone had specifically.
Oh, interesting. Okay. Yeah, definitely. So internships are similar in some ways to full-time positions in that different industries have different recruiting timelines. So for example, if you're interested in going into finance and consulting, not only is full-time recruiting happening in the fall semester, but many of the interns have actually also sped up to the fall semester. Whereas in March or in the spring semester, you're more likely to find internship deadlines for things in the creative fields, media, public relations, advertising. You might find some things that are more in the nonprofit sector, right? So you're going to be looking at what in our field we call just-in-time hiring. And so you're going to see those professions tend to do more of their internship hiring in the spring versus some of the what we would call type A professions that are a bit more planful in terms of their recruiting cycle, and they do more of their internship recruiting in the fall. So definitely now through March and April in particular is a really hot season for your student to be looking at internship opportunities. If your student is interested in trying to get an internship in an area that typically does recruit in the fall semester, she should not worry. She should still come in and meet with one of our advisors and one of our mentors to talk through what may have happened, why she may have missed some of those. Perhaps she just decided recently what she's interested in, and they can talk her through what are still some of the options, whether she may want to focus on job shadowing for this summer rather than a full internship, or what available internships might still be free with more mid-sized boutique firms instead. So there might still be options, but those are so case by case. We would want to meet with your student individually to discuss that.
Great. Here's a specific question about a graduating humanities double major. So their humanities double major is graduating. She's concerned about not finding a job, but would like to work for 1 to 2 years before grad school. Sure. Any advice for humanities majors on what they ought to be doing?
Sure, absolutely, absolutely. As a fellow humanities major myself, I think what's really important is that we need to know a little bit more information about your daughter and what exactly is she interested in doing. One of the beauties, I'm sure you hear this all the time, but it really is true. One of the beautiful facts of going to a liberal arts education and majoring in the humanities is that you actually can go on to do a number of different things, and you can go into any industry that you so wish to do. And we are here to help you actually market your skills, your talents, your capabilities for that respective field. So let's say, for example, I'll just give you an example. Let's say, for example, your student is double majoring in English and history and is really interested in arts management. I would recommend that your student come in and start meeting with Destiny, who is our arts and creative careers advisor, to begin charting out a course for how she might look at different opportunities in the arts world, whether that be museum work, whether that is within a gallery. Right? There's a lot of different options, and she needs to start charting out her specific strategy that is unique to her skill set, unique to some of the experiences she may have had, as well as learning more about the industry, the field, how she's going to network within those areas, how she needs to get her foot in the door. But you may have an English history double major that is actually interested in going into consulting, right? And that's going to be a completely different process, and that student should go see Stephanie, who is our consulting and business advisor, who's going to be able to help her develop a strategy for how she would break in there, help her start practicing her case style interviews, so on and so forth. So I'm sure what you are getting from me is we need to know a little bit more about what your student's actual industries of interest are. If you feel like your student doesn't yet have a clear picture of what her interests are, have her come in and meet with her mentor. Have her meet with her college career mentor so that we can help her start to discern and narrow down a little bit some of her choices. It's really critical that we help them to narrow down a bit so that they can be a bit more focused and targeted in their application materials and in their networking and their informational interviews as well. That makes a big difference. Our employers and our HR recruiters can very quickly identify resumes and cover letters that are written in sort of general terms and sent out to hundreds of different employers. They want tailored documents specifically for their company. And you need to be able to show sort of your knowledge around that particular industry and those trends. And so that's why it's important for us to work with your student around helping her to perhaps narrow into at least 2 or 3 options that she might want to explore for 1 or 2 years before graduate school, and how to start developing a strategy for that.
Great. Here's a question about how does career education support entry into graduate school programs such as medical or business schools? Sure. If you could speak about that.
Absolutely. So we do a lot of work with, let me just tackle medical school. I can tackle each of the different graduate schools, but we do support our students that are interested in looking for some type of graduate school experience. With medical school in particular, we actually house our our health professions advisor in career education. At some other institutions, or if you have other children that are at other universities or colleges, often that individual actually doesn't sit within career services. They sit within the provost's office, or they sit independently somewhere else. For us here at Wellesley, we really feel like it's a holistic approach and an integrated approach. So Dr. Lynn White actually sits with us. We're very fortunate. Lynn is fantastic, and she is also a MD herself. And so she meets with students and coordinates MPAC, which is our Medical Professions Advisory Committee, which is also made up of faculty that not only go through a very rigorous process with our students who have indicated interest, they do have to apply, and formally be part of the cycle so that they can be assigned an advisor. They go through practice interviews. All of their materials are reviewed by Lynn and by the faculty committee. They are given sort of insight and thoughts and guidance around their interests, what they're looking for, what might be a good fit, so on and so forth. And they're also given advice on how to be a more competitive candidate. Nowadays, it is common for our students to actually take a gap year or to take a little bit of time before applying to medical school to be able to be a very strong candidate. And Lynn walks them through all those steps, what they might want to consider doing in that time, so on and so forth. And so in case any of you are curious, in terms of our medical school acceptance rate, we are at 71% for this last 2017 cycle. When it comes to law school and to graduate school or business school, very similarly, our students are able to meet with the respective advisors for those industry areas that are able to really give them insight. So for example, I'm sure many of you on this call have gone to business school, and you know that many of the top business schools would really like to see you working for a couple of years before you apply. Right? There are some exceptions to that in terms of some of the new programs that have come out, but generally speaking, that's still a general rule of thumb. And so Stephanie, who is our advisor for business and consulting, is well connected to those business schools as well and can really help walk a student through, is an MBA actually right for her? Or depending on what her goals are, what she's trying to achieve, what might be a good path for her to pursue, and so on and so forth for all of the different forms of graduate school, whether your student wishes to pursue a career in academia or wishes to pursue a career in industry.
Great. We only have time for a few more questions, a couple more actually,
Sure.
but we had a couple research questions, science-based.
Okay.
How does Wellesley support science majors looking for research experience,
Sure.
like at REU, NASA, similar programs?
Yeah.
And also, one parent wondered if helping a professor with research over the summer could be considered for a Wellesley grant internship.
That's a great question. So we actually have a very robust summer science research program here at Wellesley that is run out of our science center with our science director, Kathy Suma. And so for students that are interested in doing research with our science faculty, there is actually a whole nother pot of money that they are able to apply to be able to get funding for summer science research. So if your student is interested in that, she should absolutely approach the faculty member, learn a little bit more about the faculty member's research, find out if that faculty member is in fact part of this summer science research program. And they can also come to us and we can help direct them to the right people on this campus so that they can engage in that. We do also have students that are interested in getting research opportunities, as you mentioned, through NIH, through NASA, through other organizations that are outside of this campus, and they would work with our career community advisors, just like anybody else, to help to obtain some of those opportunities. They would also network with our alums through the Hive, just like we have mentioned. And so our advisors in particular, Francis and Christopher focuses a little bit more on the life sciences and sort of the health and public health areas. Francis focuses more on the technology and physical sciences. And so together, the two of them are likely to be the ones that your student would want to meet with to talk a bit more about their research interests and how they might like to pursue that, whether it's on campus or it's off campus. And we do have a very close relationship with our faculty and our colleagues on campus, so we're always happy to make sure that they get connected to the right people. Here.
Now, our humanities parents are also piping in and wondering if there is research available and grant opportunities for humanities research.
That's a great question. I know that there is also a social sciences fellowship or research fellows program. I am not familiar if there is specifically a humanities one, though I do know that students are always welcome to come and chat with us about sort of what they're pursuing, what they're looking at, and we can let them know if the criteria of that particular project will fit with the confines of our funding. And just to provide you with a little bit more insight, because this might be a little bit unique here at Wellesley versus at other colleges or universities, we are really fortunate to be able to give the amount of money that we do in grants due to our very generous alumni donors that have provided us with those funds. However, what that means is that for some of our funds, or for many of our funds, we do have different stipulations for how the alum has decided to designate those particular funds. And so that might mean that there are certain criteria that we need to adhere to in order for that fund to be given out. And that may be different university to university. So just in case you're wondering why we would need to meet with a student or potentially hear out what her research project might be if she's in an area that doesn't already have a large amount of funding, That would be why, because we can't just provide the funding if it doesn't meet designations as given by our donors.
Now, Christine, what would you suggest if you had a student who was studying abroad? How would they access some of all these services in career education?
Sure, absolutely. So a lot of our things are actually accessible virtually. Our new website, which I am super excited about, is going to launch in just a couple of weeks. They will be able to access over hundreds of our resources right there on their computer. If they are interested in doing some type of appointment with our staff, they are also able to just go right onto Handshake, which they can access from their room or computer to schedule an appointment. If they notice that there are no available appointments at the times that work for them, they are always welcome to email the advisor directly and just explain their situation. Hi, I'm abroad in China. Currently, you don't have any available times at this particular hour because I recognize I'm 12 or 13 hours ahead. Could we work something out? My advisors and my team would be happy to accommodate and to work with students in order to do so. So that is not an issue at all. In terms of some of our events and programs, we are actually beginning to do more work with our colleagues in LTS, Library Technology Services, to see what we can record and what we can have available online as well, so that if somebody isn't able to attend a particular event or attend a particular program or workshop, they might still be able to access that. So that is to come, and I encourage them to continue to check the website for some of those as well. But they can always access our team and our resources.
Very specific, are there, and where would you find a poli-sci internship for the coming summer?
Oh, interesting. So depending on what your student is interested in doing, when you say political science, that could be a think tank, that could be working for local government, that could be for the federal government, it could be a number of different areas. There is a very robust Wellesley and Washington program that is run out of the poli-sci department, actually. They're good partners. I would highly encourage your students to look into that opportunity and into those programs. Because we do not run that specific program out of career education, I'm actually not sure when their deadlines are. If for any reason the deadline has already passed, I highly encourage that student to meet with Emma, who is our Government, International Affairs, and Pre-Law Advisor, and she would be happy to work with your student around still finding some type of internship that is related to her interest areas, which sounds like might be in think tank, international affairs, or the government.
Okay, I think we need to wrap it up, but I will tell you that we had a question, and I'm sure many parents out there will share this, that what are some suggestions for how we can sort of guide and nudge our daughters to make the most of all of these resources? Any final suggestions or thoughts about how they should jump in?
Sure.
That parents, any suggestions to tell, the parents to tell the student?
Yeah, absolutely. This is so tough. I am now a parent, but only of a 5-year-old. And so I have a few years before I get to this myself. But I think it's so unique to your individual daughter and to what will really motivate her. I know for some parents, it has been really useful and helpful for them to remind their student that 70-some% of their classmates have already come in to engage with us. And they're curious when they will be taking that next step to come in and engage with us. And sometimes that has been really helpful for the student to realize, oh, wow, everybody else is getting on board with this. Everybody else has started the conversation. I need to at least start the conversation. For some parents, I have heard that it's been very helpful for them to remind their student that they don't need to have any answers to come talk with us. In fact, that is exactly why we exist. That is why we are here. If they don't know what they want to talk about, or they don't even know where to start, or all they have are questions, that is precisely why they should come in and meet with their college career mentor. That is exactly why they should come and make an appointment with us. And I think sometimes there's a little anxiety from our students' end that they need to have a plan, or they need to know exactly what they're doing before they come in and see career education. And that is not the case at all. So remind them that we are actually here to help them while they are confused, or to help them while they don't know. And we can help guide them through that. I think the other thing to remind them too is they're really fortunate to be here at Wellesley, where they have access to this type of in-depth, personalized, customized attention. This is not what they will find at other universities or colleges. It's not what their peers or their siblings may find at other places, not to this extent. And while this is not true for Wellesley, because we do actually offer lifetime services to our alumni, one of the things that got me in the door, actually, when I was an undergraduate, because I really didn't use career services, funny enough, was somebody said to me, do you know how much this actually costs when you go out into the real world and you want to meet with an executive coach or you want to meet with a career coach? It can be upwards of $300–400 an hour to meet with somebody. And here, they obviously get to access all of that for free. So it's important that they take advantage of those services while they are here in person. Luckily for them, they're a Wellesley grad. They will be a Wellesley grad, and so they will always have access to us. But it's always easiest when you can actually be here in person to be able to engage with us and have that high-touch feel, which I assume is probably one of the reasons why they chose Wellesley in the first place.
Well, that has got to be it for tonight. But I just have to say thank you, Christine, for sharing all of this with our Wellesley families.